Good afternoon all. Pranam. So, in the next 20 to 30 minutes, just I will try to decipher, means just decoding, and I will try to understand what GINA guideline, GINA means Global Initiative for Asthma, what this guideline says, the recent guideline. So, GINA guideline is very vast, but it is relevant for us because all over the world it is taken as a reference. So this learning will be घंटों का सफर मिनटों में. So as Dr. Rashi said, asthma is the commonest respiratory disease in children. So we should know most of things about the asthma in children. And so objective of our talk today will be how to define asthma, how to suspect asthma in a child, how to confirm the diagnosis if we have suspected, how to assess the severity of the disease after diagnosis, and how to treat asthma in children, and what to do when no facility to confirm the diagnosis by investigations. So this facility investigations to confirm the diagnosis of asthma is not available everywhere in India. So what to do then? So please read this. This is Hindi in English. What is this? लिखा है इनकी आंखों में इसका अफसाना, अगर तुम इसे समझ सको मुझे भी समझाना. So it is very difficult to understand this GINA guideline. I have gone through so many GINA guidelines in last 20 years, and every time when I try to understand and implement it, it changes next year. So every year there is a new GINA guideline. So let us start with the case scenario. 2.5 years male child came to our OPD with complaint of cough, noisy breathing and shortness of breath for last 12 to 13 days. And there was 4 such episodes in past 1 year, and at diagnosed, this child had diagnosed atopic dermatitis at age of 2 years only, and mother is non-asthmatic, and on examination there was wheezes bilaterally. And what may be the probabilities for this child? Is it recurrent chest infection with wheeze? Is it recurrent bronchiolitis? Is it recurrent bronchitis? Is it bronchomalacia? Or lastly, can it be asthma? So at the end of discussion, we will know. So how to define asthma? Asthma is a heterogeneous disease. I will describe why it is called heterogeneous disease. It is usually characterized by chronic airway inflammation and airway hyperresponsiveness. These two components are not necessary or sufficient for diagnosis. In absence of these components also we can diagnose asthma. And asthma is defined by respiratory symptoms like cough, wheeze, chest tightness and shortness of breath, which vary over time and intensity associated with variable expiratory airflow limitation. I have described one by one. And this airflow limitation may later become persistent, so it may not remain variable forever. Variations of symptoms and airflow limitations are often triggered by, so these are the triggering factors of symptoms or airflow limitations. What are those triggering factors? Exercise, exposure to allergens and or irritants, changing weather, exposure to cold air, ingestions of food items very cold to touch, viral infections of respiratory tract. In children, this is very important. In children, laughing and crying are representatives of exercise. So laughing and crying is like exercise which stimulates the airway. Symptoms and airflow limitations may resolve spontaneously. Means without treatment, the symptoms and airflow limitations may resolve. There may be no symptoms for weeks or months, for years together, like that. and it may resolve with treatment also. So these may remain absent sometimes for weeks or months to reappear again. There may be sudden and episodic flare-up of symptoms. This is called asthma exacerbation. In a totally normal child, no symptoms last few days, and suddenly symptoms and child become serious. So flare-up may be life-threatening and put burden to the patient and community. So it is usually associated with chronic airway inflammation, which I have already said, and hyperresponsiveness to direct or indirect stimuli. So what is this hyperresponsiveness? There are some persons where you abuse them, you will not say anything. But there are some persons where if you lightly say something, they will react. So this is hyperresponsiveness, not a normal response. So airway hyperresponsiveness persists even when symptoms are absent and lung functions are normal. So this hyperresponsiveness persists even if there is no symptom. Child is completely asymptomatic. These may normalize with treatment. So what about disease burden? It affects 1% to 29% population in different communities all over the world, and most deaths are in middle and low income countries like India. So why asthma is called a heterogeneous disease? It is not like one size fits for all. It is not like asthma is a singular type, like typhoid, you diagnose typhoid by symptoms and give some treatment, it will be cured. It is not like tuberculosis, pulmonary tuberculosis, drug sensitive, diagnose and give one drug, 4 drug combinations and respond. It is not like that. So it is called heterogeneous. So there are different underlying disease process, that is types of inflammations, and those are type 2 and non-type 2 inflammations, and these are called endotypes of asthma. And clusters of clinical, demographic and pathophysiological characteristics are called phenotypes of asthma. And I will describe one by one what are the phenotypes of asthma. So asthma phenotypes, regarding this, no strong relationship between particular pathological process and clinical pattern or response to treatment exists. There is no direct relationship. Phenotype guided treatment is available for few severe asthma types, only for few types, and more research is needed for clinical utility of these phenotypes. So it is not clear till now. So these are the asthma phenotypes. First is allergic asthma. Most easily recognizable asthma, this variety usually starts in childhood, and history of atopy is present in this phenotype in the form of past history of eczema, allergy, rhinitis, food or drug allergy in child, and or family history of allergy or atopy. And response to treatment, very good response to inhalational corticosteroids because there is eosinophilic inflammations evidenced by high eosinophilic sputum and or blood. So in this variety there are allergic symptoms, manifestations, and there is very good response to inhalational corticosteroids. And let us see the other types. Other type is non-allergic asthma. There is no evidence of atopy either in the child or in the family. Cellular types, one is sputum Janssen's, are neutrophils, eosinophils or prosegranular, means there may be very few inflammatory cells. And response to inhalational corticosteroid not good in this variety of asthma, and it is non-allergic asthma phenotype. Next is adult onset asthma. This is also non-allergic, and it first time appears in adult, particularly in female, and requires high dose of corticosteroids, or it may be totally refractory to corticosteroid treatment. So another asthma phenotypes are asthma with persistent airflow limitations, long standing asthma with either incomplete reversibility or no reversibility of airflow limitation. In this there will be incomplete reversibility, slide is not visible clearly. So in this there will be either incomplete reversibility after bronchodilator, or there will be no reversibility at all. And why it happens? Because there is remodeling of airways have already occurred in this phenotype of asthma. Another phenotype is asthma with obesity. So in this there are prominent respiratory symptoms, and there is little eosinophilic airway inflammations. So eosinophilic inflammation is rarely seen in this variety. Now how to make the initial diagnosis of asthma. This is important. So diagnosis is based upon the typical respiratory symptoms which are variable. Variable means there may be mild sometimes, moderate sometimes, severe sometimes. It is variable. And symptoms are more during late night and early morning. This is very important for the diagnosis of asthma. Child is symptomatic during late night or early morning, but in children, daytime symptoms are important when the child is playing. So when the child is playing, there is exercise, it is equivalent to exercise, and there is symptoms appearance of asthma. Evidence of expiratory airflow limitation, which is reversible and variable. So it is done by pulmonary function test. So when we do pulmonary function test, there will be evidence of the expiratory airflow limitations and which is reversible on giving bronchodilator. So there are some age-appropriate pulmonary function tests available. PFT, pulmonary function test, spirometry is for children more than 5 years of age. 2 to 5 years we can do impulse oscillometry, and in infants, that is less than 1 year of age, we can also demonstrate airway obstruction and reversibility by a test known as raised volume rapid thoracic compression test, that is RVRTC. Then once the treatment has started with inhalation corticosteroid, variability of airflow limitations as well as symptoms are decreased. So asthma diagnosis could be done initially before starting the treatment. After starting the treatment, it becomes difficult to demonstrate airflow obstructions and variability. So if these symptoms are there is decreased probability that the child is asthmatic. These symptoms are isolated cough with no other respiratory symptoms, chronic production of sputum, dyspnea with inspiratory noise while doing exercise. It is seen in inducible laryngeal obstruction, chest pain, feeling of lightheadedness, dizziness, and tingling sensation, that is paresthesia with shortness of breath. So if these symptoms are there is less probability that the child is asthmatic. So now, how to suspect asthma in children who are below 5 years of age? So this is very important. So asthma can be diagnosed below 5 years of age. In infants also we can diagnose asthma. So these are the clusters of symptoms. Few has asthma, some has asthma, and most have asthma. If there is cough, wheeze, heavy breathing for less than 10 days during upper respiratory tract infection, only 2 to 3 episodes per year, no symptoms between episodes, then only the little chance that the child is asthmatic. Few has asthma, only few. But cough, wheeze, heavy breathing for more than 10 days during upper respiratory tract infection, more than 3 episodes per year, or severe episodes and or night worsening is there, and between episodes child may have occasional cough, wheeze or heavy breathing. If these are there, then some child may have asthma. And third category is cough, wheeze, heavy breathing for more than 10 days during upper respiratory tract infections, more than 3 episodes per year, or severe episodes and or night worsening. Between episodes, child has cough, wheeze, heavy breathing during play or laugh. And the last line is very important. There may be allergic sensitization, atopic dermatitis in the child, food allergy known in the child, or family history of asthma. If these are there, most children have asthma. If these symptoms are there is maximum probability that the child is asthmatic. Now on physical examination, what we will get? Physical examination is often normal in asthma. Often normal. There is one child, 16 years in our ward now, and when I was conducted, chest was clear. When my residents was conducted, chest was clear. Then wheeze appears how? See, wheeze is the main clinical finding in asthma, and it is mainly expiratory. When you auscultate, sometimes the chest there will be no wheeze, but when we say the child to forcefully exhale, then you can get wheeze. So wheeze may be absent or only heard on forceful expiration. So only when you will say the child to forcefully exhale, expirate, then only we can get wheeze. So it may be absent during severe exacerbation also. It is called silent chest. But how do you differentiate between normal silent chest and the silent chest due to severe asthma exacerbation? In silent chest due to severe asthma exacerbation, signs of respiratory distress will be present for that time. Signs of respiratory distress are present, but chest is silent on auscultation. Other causes of which should be ruled out, like respiratory infections, tracheomalacia, bronchomalacia, foreign aspiration, COPD. It is rare in children, maybe COPD asthma overlap, inducible laryngeal obstruction. These causes of wheezing should be ruled out by history and proper examination and investigation. So, what are the evidence for asthma diagnosis? Confirmed variable airflow limitation. So, any one of the following which I am describing, if any one of the following is present, is confirmed variable airflow limitation, it will confirm the diagnosis of asthma. The greater the variation, more confident is the diagnosis. If initially negative, if the airflow limitation variation is negative initially, test can be repeated during symptom or early morning, then you will get this variation. Positive bronchodilator response. What is this positive bronchodilator response? Do the spirometry or PFT, any PFT which is available to you, and then give 100 to 400 microgram of salbutamol for inhalation route, and again repeat the test after 15 minutes and see the response. So, in this case, there may be more than 12% increase in FEV1 when the test is repeated after 15 minutes. Second is positive exercise challenge test. What is this? So, if you put spirometry and subject the child for some exercise and repeat the test. If there is fall of FEV1 more than 12% predicted or fall of peak expected flow more than 15% of the baseline, then it is variable airflow limitation. Other tests are excessive daily variation of PEF, peak expected flow, over 2 weeks. If more than 13% average daily diurnal variation, it confirms the diagnosis of asthma. Bronchial challenge test, other test. So if there is 20% or more fall in FEV1 after methacholine, 15% or more fall of FEV1 after hyperventilation, mannitol, hypertonic saline, it confirms the diagnosis of asthma. Variation in lung function between visits. If there is more than 12% FEV1 or more than 15% PF between visits, then it also confirms the asthma. And increase in lung function after 4 weeks of inhalation corticosteroid treatment. If there is more than 12% FEV1 or more than 15% PF from the baseline, it is seen in adults mainly, it also confirms the diagnosis of asthma. So, asthma diagnosis is confirmed by demonstrating expiratory airflow limitation. So, this child is subjected to IUS, that is impulse oscillometry. It can be done even in a child of 2 years also, and we can demonstrate expiratory airflow limitations with this IUS, and this child is subjected to spirometry. So in spirometry also we can see the FEV1 or ratio of FEV1. If FEV1 is less than 80% predicted and ratio of FEV1 FVC is less than 90% in children, it is confirmatory of asthma. So what is this bronchodilator responsiveness? Previously it was called bronchodilator reversibility, now it is called responsiveness. Term has changed. So bronchodilator reversibility may be lost during severe exacerbation or during viral infections. Then airflow limitations may become persistent over the time. This is very important. So reversibility or responsiveness is lost over the time. In case of urgency, treatment should be started even if test is negative and diagnosis may be confirmed later. So if there is emergency, you have diagnosed it clinically, it is asthma, so start treatment, do not delay treatment. Pending diagnosis can be done later by the demonstration of this airway limitation and variation of this airway limitation. So at that time, you clinically diagnose asthma and treat it. How to assess the severity of asthma? So previously, it was assessed at the start of treatment. INA guideline stated previously, the statement of INA guideline was that the first that you assess the severity, but now it has changed in last few years. Retrospective assessment after 2 to 3 months of starting treatment. On the basis of treatment required to control symptoms and risk of future exacerbation. It is assessed on the basis of this. The term mild asthma should be avoided in clinical practice. Why? Because persons with infrequent symptoms or no in-between symptoms with normal lung function may experience fatal exacerbation. So this term mild asthma should be avoided. But epidemiologically it is being used. For research purposes it is being used. So only short-acting beta agonist, not taking inhalation corticosteroid or combination of SABA ICS. So these are at greater risk of fatal exacerbations. So what is asthma control? So level of control is extent to which asthma symptoms can be observed or reduced or removed by treatment. It is called asthma control. So there are two domains of asthma control. One is symptom assessment, second is future risk of exacerbation. One by one we will see risk of exacerbation even if symptoms are in control. What are the risks of exacerbation? If there is 1 to 2 severe exacerbation of asthma in last year, if the child is taking SABA only treatment, if there is poor adherence to medications, if there is faulty technique of inhalation medications, if there is exposure to environmental tobacco smoke, these are the future risks of exacerbation. And the risk of severe exacerbation are if the child has been ever intubated or the child had any admission in the pediatric ICU. So these are the risk factors of severe exacerbation. Other risk factors for future exacerbations are poor psychosocial conditions, poor socio-economic conditions, low FEV1, that is less than 60% of FEV1 predicted, blood eosinophilia, and overuse of short-acting beta agonist, maybe more than 1 canister per month. Now, assessment of symptom control. How we will assess the symptom control? One is future risk of exacerbation, one is symptom control. So we take the history in last 4 weeks. Is the daytime symptoms more than 2 days per week? Is use of short-acting beta agonist more than 2 days per week? Any night awakening due to cough with shortness of breath? Any limitation of activities? And we give 1.2 each box and assess the level of symptom control. How? If there is no point, then it is well controlled. If there is 1 to 2 points, it is partly controlled, and if there are 3 to 4 points, it is uncontrolled asthma. Now, how to start treatment? We have diagnosed asthma till now. Now we want to start treatment. How to start treatment? So there are steps of treatment and depends on the symptoms. Symptoms for less than twice in a month. No risk for exacerbation as I have already described. Then step 1 treatment should be avoided. So I am starting treatment from adolescence. Then gradually I will move downwards till infancy. So this is for adolescents. So step 1 treatment is as needed LABA ICS combination. So only SABA should not be used. Only short-acting beta agonist like salbutamol should not be used. In this age group, it is recommended that whenever there is need, you should use this inhalation corticosteroid with this SABA. So this is step 1. If symptoms or need for SABA twice a month, step 2 as needed ICS SABA, these are both similar. So what is step 3? Symptoms 4 to 5 days in a week, night awakening once in a week or more, then step 3 treatment should be started. It is low dose inhalation corticosteroid LABA combination, and it is used both for maintenance and reliever therapy, that is called SMART therapy, single maintenance and reliever therapy, SMART therapy. And what is step 4? Initial presentation. If the initial presentation has severe uncontrolled asthma or there is acute exacerbation of asthma, then straightforward start with step 4 treatment, and step 4 treatment is medium dose inhalation corticosteroid plus LABA, maintenance and reliever, that is SMART therapy. Now for children between 6 to 11, this was for adolescents. Now for children between 6 to 11 years of age. See what is step 1? Symptoms less than twice in a month. Step 1 as needed ICS LABA like in adolescents. Symptoms twice in a month but not daily. Step 2, that is it is different from adolescents, that is daily low dose inhalation corticosteroid. This is step 2. In step 3, symptoms almost daily, night awakening once in a week or more. Then step 3 should be applied, and it is low dose inhalation corticosteroid LABA combination or medium dose inhalation corticosteroid. Then what is step 4? If symptoms almost daily, night awakening once or more in a week with low lung function, then step 4 should be given, and it is medium dose inhalation corticosteroid plus LABA. And see here, reliever for step 4, 5 is ICS LABA, and step 1, 2 is SABA only for this age group. Now, how to start treatment in children below 5 years of age. See, below 5 years of age, step 1, what it says? If there is infrequent viral wheeze no or few in between symptoms. Step 1, that is as needed SAVA. So in this age group, whenever child is taking SAVA, there is no need to add ICS. So in this age group, as needed SAVA, step 1 therapy is required. In step 2, symptoms not consistent with asthma but episodes requiring SAVA 3 or more times per year, daily low dose inhalation corticosteroid should be started and it should be continued for 3 months and see the response. If it is responding, continue it, not responding, stop it and review your diagnosis. If symptoms consistent with asthma with episodes 3 or more per year and if it not well controlled, then step 2, that is daily low dose ICS could be started. In step 3, asthma diagnosis confirmed and not controlled on low dose ICS. This step 3 says that double the dose of ICS. Means this low dose, just double the low dose in step 3 and asthma not controlled on double dose ICS. Step 4 is started, that is add on LTRA, that is montelukast, and add intermittent inhalation corticosteroid or increase the frequency of inhalation corticosteroid. This is the all the steps from initiating asthma in children below 5 years of age. Now step 5 for all age groups. What is step 5? If the asthma is not controlled on step 4, add on therapy in the form of tiotropium. There are some biologicals recommended in children also, like macrolizumab is now recommended in children after 6 years of age. Omalizumab is recommended in children after 6 years of age. So some biologicals are there. So add on treatment in the form of tiotropium, biologicals, then assess the phenotype and confirm the phenotype, then treat according to that. And lastly, referral. If the patient is more than 18 years, refer to Dr. Manish Sharma. And thank you, sir. Just I am referring to you for further discussion. So we are fortunate that Dr. Manish Sharma is here. He is department head pulmonary medicine, and all over India, what skills have been developed by pediatric pulmonologists are from adult pulmonologists. I am also learning some skills from Dr. Manish Sharma. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. These GINA guidelines are made much